I'm going to be reviewing the Niner BSB 9 cyclocross bike. This video will be a follow-up to the first one I made, which was more of a first look when I got the bike. Now that I've got 2 months of riding and racing on this bike, I'm going to do more of a full review. The BSB 9 for 2014 is a new bike from Niner. This one is geared more towards cyclocross racing. They had put out the RLT a few years ago, which was more for kind of dirt road, gravel type riding, which you could race cyclocross. But the geometry on this one is made specifically for cyclocross racing. This one is the 5-star build, which is the top of the line. It's got the Ultegra Di2. But the way I do this review, I'm gonna talk about the 5-star build, but I'm also going to talk about the aspects of the frame, since they sell this in various build kits and as a frame only. This is a carbon frame, and typically you would get this, like I said, as a build kit or frame set, which means it would come with the headset and the fork. The bike is a disc-specific bike, so there are no bosses or anything for cantilever brakes. It's a disc only. Of course, the same with the fork. It uses internal cable routing, and this one, of course, with the Di2, is going to have the thin cables going into the frame. And it comes with various plugs, so you can run it with the Di2 cables, or you can run other cables. So I've got a solid plug on this side, which again it does come with, which is really nice. Niner includes everything you need really to build up the bike. And everything is internal all the way down through the frame and even through the chainstay. I do like the fact that they included bosses for the brake. You do not run the brake cable inside, which would be a pain because you would have to undo the actual brake housing, and that would require having to bleed the brakes. Now when you buy a Niner, in case any of you guys out there like to build up your own bike, they come pretty much as a frame and then every component in its boxes, so they don't come kind of pre-assembled as a lot of other bikes do. I like to build my own, but just kind of a side note there, that you will have to cut your brake housing and all that and install everything as if you got every component individually. In the rear, the axle is a standard 9mm by 135 quick release. In the front, you've actually got a 15 QR through axle. So it comes with the RockShox Maxle. And that's a good segue for me to go into the stiffness of this frame, which to me is probably the best riding characteristic. I'm coming off of an aluminum cyclocross bike with cantilever brakes that I had for about 3 years. Kind of got me into the sport of cyclocross. Switching over to this, this frame is not only light, it's also very stiff. The handling on this bike is, I mean, razor sharp. Part of it is this just really thick bladed carbon fork that it comes with, but also having a 15 QR is going to make the front end stiffer. You know, in cyclocross you're doing a lot of switchbacks on grass. You are, you know, turning in sand, and having a bike that handles well is really key. And you know, again, being the carbon frame, being a carbon fork, and having the 15 QR axle just really makes this bike handle well. It almost just darts from one corner to the other. You know, I just can't say enough about how well this bike handles. Like I said in the opening, the geometry is a little bit steeper, so it's going to be a little bit more quick and agile as compared to a more relaxed geometry like the RLT, the gravel road type bike. I use this bike again for racing, but also I do a lot of dirt road riding. It's really good training for me. I try not to get on the roads very often just because of all the cars. I mean, I do have a road bike for group road riding, but if I'm going out by myself, I'm going to be on dirt roads. I also take this bike on trails. You know, you can use this as a trail bike if the trails are not rough. We have a lot of routes, so you really got to be on your game when you're riding a cyclocross bike on trails. But I'll use it for that too, but mainly for dirt road riding and racing. And the headset's internal, as it is with most bikes today. The bottom bracket it comes with these press-in cups, but then you've got, you can do various cups with the Niners, I believe. You can do a press fit, or you can do a threaded. These cups have threads, so you actually press in the cups, and then you thread in your bottom bracket. I don't really have a preference either way. I use both. My mountain bikes have press fit, and my road bike as well. So they both, I don't notice really any flex between the two. I also really like the fact that this bike comes with 2 water bottle holders. For cyclocross racing, you don't really need that. In fact, sometimes people don't even use a water bottle holder on a cyclocross bike. But for going out on dirt roads, long road rides, 60, 70, 80 mile dirt road rides, it's really nice carrying 2 water bottles on the bike. I usually end up throwing one in my jersey. My previous cyclocross bike only had 1 cage holder, so really appreciate that. So now let me go over the components that you get with the 5-star build. Of course, you get the Di2, which is just spectacular. This is my first bike with Di2. I really actually didn't plan on getting the Di2, but the Shimano hydraulic brakes with the mechanical shifters were pretty back ordered. So I ponied up and got the Di2, which now that I'm getting used to it, I absolutely love it. And I think Di2 is a really good application for cyclocross racing. One is there's pretty much no maintenance after you have it set up, and it is very easy to install and set up. But with there being no mechanical cables or anything to get dirt and crud inside if you're riding through mud and sand and things like that, your shifting is just spot on all the time. Every single shift is precise. Like I said, there's no maintenance involved. You don't have to lube any cables or replace cables or things like that. So again, Di2 great for cyclocross, but also because you're shifting so much. And one thing that I use a lot with the Di2 is being able to hold down the shifters and do multiple shifts really quickly. So in cyclocross, I mean, you may come down a hill and make a turn and immediately have to shoot up a hill, and you can just hold down your shifter and it will go 3, 4, 5 gears within just a couple seconds. So that's probably the coolest feature about Di2 for me for cyclocross racing. Now that I have disc brakes on a cyclocross bike, I don't think I could ever go back to cantilevers. These, coming from a mountain bike background, I'm really used to the feel of hydraulics. I'm used to the modulation, which means that it's not that on-off feel. You get plenty of ramping up power, but they also have a ton of power. My cantilever brakes, I don't think I could lock those things up on wet leaves. They were really hard to stop with. This bike comes with 160 millimeter rotors. A lot of the other cyclocross bikes I've seen and road bikes with coming out with the hydraulic disc brakes now are using 140s. The 160s, you got to be careful. You can lock up the wheels pretty easily, but what's nice is you have almost no hand fatigue after a race. Yesterday I did 2 races. So I did my normal Masters 35 plus and also my Cat 3. I normally don't do Cat 3s, but I did it just for training. Actually got the win in both races, so the bike's really serving me well. And I've done 3 race weekends. I've got 3 second place finishes and 4 wins on this bike, so the bike's really serving me well as far as racing. But going back to the brakes, like I was saying, very little if no hand fatigue from braking because of the power that you get, not only with the hydraulic brakes but also with the 160 rotor. So that's going to be a preference. If I had to make the recommendation, I'd probably say go with 160s for cyclocross. I am actually running slick tires on this bike, and while I'm on the tires, let me talk about the wheels, because the 5-star build does not come with the Stan's Grail wheel set. The 4-star does. But I actually sold the carbon wheels that this bike came with so I can't give you a ride report on those wheels. Those are extremely nice wheels. I did that to offset the price of the bike a bit, so I used the Stan's Grails, and I really like Stan's wheels. I really like how the beads of the tire will really lock in. These are a standard clincher tire, and I had a little bit of a problem seating them in the rim. I had to put a tube in, lock in one of the beads, pull the tube out, and then lock in the other bead with an air compressor. But once they're in, they're in. Not had any burping issues or anything. But again, that's more, the Grails come, like I said, with a 4-star build, so not specific to this bike. And they also came with a really nice set of Schwalbe, or Schwalbe if you say it that way, tires that I could not get to seat on the Stan's rims. They were, of course, a not tubeless ready tire, just a standard clincher, but the bead was a little bit too loose, so I used these Clements, which have really served me well. I use the Clements more for dirt road riding. They're really good in sand. Not the best tire, obviously, if you're racing in mud. One of my races, there was a mud section. We had some rain the night before, but most of the course was okay with these tires. I am going to switch to a knob tire pretty soon, just to kind of see how it feels for the cornering. A few other components worth mentioning on this bike. It does come with a Niner stem. This is a 90mm stem, which is a good length. And while I'm talking about stem length, let me talk about the geometry. If you're not real familiar with cyclocross bikes, the top tube is a little bit shorter to give you a little bit better handling than compared to a road bike. And speaking of sizing and geometry, I'm 5'8.5". I have the 53, which is a perfect fit. I usually ride a 54 on a road bike or a medium. This geometry fits me really well. So the geometry is a little bit shorter on the cross bike, helps you with the handling, helps you with the sprinting, that kind of thing. It comes with the Niner seat post. This is their RDO carbon seat post, which has a little bit of flex to it. So you get a little bit of kind of bump absorption. Now, on a mountain bike, you typically will have more seat posts sticking out. With a cross bike, the top tube has to be a little bit straighter so you can get your shoulder underneath it for certain sections where you got to shoulder the bike. So you probably don't have quite as much flex as you would with a mountain bike. I've actually used this seat post on a Niner Sur 9 single speed, and I had a lot of seat posts sticking out, got a lot of flex in the seat post, which was really nice. But cross, the courses aren't as rough as a mountain bike course, so the flex isn't quite as necessary, but it is nice to have a little bit of bump absorption. This Niner saddle, I've really enjoyed this saddle. I typically run WTB Silverado saddles on my bikes, and I'm really pleased with the comfort of this saddle. I've taken this bike on some 3-4 hour rides. No comfort issues at all with this saddle. Really good saddle. The 5-star build comes with the Thompson carbon handlebar. It's a really nice bar. And the 5-star build comes with an Ultegra crank. It's got a 46 outer ring and a 36 inner ring. The rear cassette, and this is 11 speed, has an 11 for the small cog and a 32 for the big. And the gearing works really well. I mean, this cog's a little bit more spaced out than a road cog, but you need the lower gearing for some steep cyclocross hills. On the road, I think around 30 miles an hour is where I start to spin out. So plenty of gearing for dirt roads and cyclocross racing. I've not needed any lower or higher gear in any of my rides or races so far. This bike, without pedals, comes in around 18 pounds. I run the Shimano XT pedals. It's a pretty good pedal for cyclocross riding and racing. So that's going to wrap up this review of the Niner BSB 9. To sum it up, I think the best way to describe this bike is light, quick, agile, and stiff. So whether you're buying this bike as a complete bike or a frame only, this bike is absolutely top of the line for racing and dirt road riding. Again, like I said, I use it for both, and it's a great application for that. With it being more of a race bike, you're going to have a quicker handling bike on the dirt roads. So for steep downhills on dirt roads, you know, you got to be a little bit more in your game than a bike like the RLT that's with a slacker geometry. But I like the versatility of this, that I can use it for both. And being a light bike is really key for cyclocross racing when you get into the more competitive type racing, because not only are you having to ride your bike up steep dirt and grassy hills, but you're also having to carry your bike over stairs and barriers. So the lighter the better on a cyclocross bike. So that'll wrap it up for this review. Thanks for watching.